Hey everybody. So, what happened to the New York Islanders? Because last night the Islanders were swept out in the second round by Carolina. Four straight games. They lost 5-2 last night. And it really, after the Islanders blew through Pittsburgh in the first round, they looked like one of the top teams in the league. And then this series, it's been the exact opposite, and it was really a tale of two series in these playoffs for the Islanders. So, what went wrong, and how did the team that destroyed the Penguins in the first round get destroyed themselves in the second round? So, I want to look into where things really went wrong for the New York Islanders, and the first thing that comes to mind for me is that Carolina proved that they could play New York Islanders hockey and compete with the Islanders playing the Islanders style of game. And we saw that in games 1 and 2. Carolina won game 1 1-0, and Carolina won game 2 2-1. If you had told me before the series that game 1 would finish 1-0 and game 2 would finish 2-1, I would have said, "Oh, the Islanders are up 2-0. They took care of business at home." And that is the style of play that they want to play. The Islanders this year were not a high-scoring team. They were a very, very defensive-minded team, focused on goaltending and defense. They kept the scores low. They won games 1-0 and 2-1, not 5-4. And Carolina in this series played New York Islanders hockey when they needed to, and they were the team with the stifling defense. They were the team that didn't give up goals, and instead of the Islanders. Once Carolina proved that they could play that way, it was a big problem for New York, because the Islanders cannot be a team that's going to score 5 goals a game. That they just don't have that in them. That's not the way they play. Carolina, they can play any kind of hockey you want. They've proven in these playoffs that they can win the 2-1 game and they can win the 5-4 game, and that was a big, big problem for the Islanders. They could not, if they weren't winning the 2-1 games, they weren't winning, and that's what we've seen happen. Another thing that comes out is the Islanders' lack of offense. They could not score in this series, and some of that comes down to their own deficiencies, and with just goal scoring up front. They're not an offensive team, but some of that credit absolutely belongs to Carolina as well. Carolina's goaltending, no matter who was in net, whether it was McElhaney or Mrazek, was phenomenal. And Carolina has learned to play a stifling defensive game in their own end, and they've played very, very well defensively. So, the inability to score for the Islanders really, really hurt them. In the first round, the Islanders were able to get the puck in the net. No, they weren't scoring a ton of goals, but they were able to get the puck in the net. And when you score 3 goals a game or 4 goals in a game, and then you hold the opponent to 1, you're in good shape. You're going to win that game. And that's what they were able to do against Pittsburgh. But against the Hurricanes, the Islanders weren't able to score 3 or 4 goals. They never scored more than 2 goals in a game. Game 1, they scored 0. Game 2, they scored 1. In games 3 and 4, they scored 2 goals apiece. You're not going to win hockey games scoring 2 goals or less every single game. And when you have that lack of offense mixed with Carolina's very good defense, then you're in big, big trouble. And that's what we saw with the Islanders. And for the Islanders, they didn't really have their stifling defense in this series. That's the third thing that really kind of hurt them. And they did in games 1 and 2. They only gave up 1 goal in game 1, but they lost because they couldn't score. In game 2, they only gave up 2 goals, but they lost because they couldn't score. Now, games 3 and 4, things got, the defense kind of cracked a little bit, and they gave up 5 goals in each of those games. And sure, there were empty netters allowed, which obviously kind of makes it look worse than it was. But the defense couldn't completely hold strong all the way. And games 3 and 4, they started to give up more goals, and there were more cracks defensively. And it's, that's going to happen. And when you don't have that offensive support, when you don't have that offense there to score right back when you give up a goal, you're not going to win hockey games. And that's what happened for the Islanders. Also, another thing that I think should not be overlooked about the Islanders, Johnny Boychuk's absence. Johnny Boychuk is one of their better defensemen, a veteran guy who's won a Stanley Cup with the Bruins and been a very, very important piece for them, and is a solid veteran defenseman on that back end, and he missed this entire series with injury. Not having Boychuk really, really hurt the Islanders, I think, because that is a guy that you want back there in the playoffs. And that might have been one of the reasons that their defense kind of cracked a little bit in this series. It wasn't as stifling as it had been in the first round. But, for the Hurricanes deserve a ton of credit for the way that they've played. The Hurricanes have been phenomenal in these playoffs, and that's why they're going to the Eastern Conference Final. And for the Islanders, for a team that focuses so much on defense, so hard on keeping the puck out of the net, when they don't keep the puck out of the net, it's going to be extremely difficult for them to win. And that's what happened, especially in games 3 and 4 in this series, and they were just not able to pull out any wins. And their offense, their inability to score really, really hurt. Because if they would have been able to score 4 goals instead of 2, they could have taken one of these games. They could have taken 2 of these games, and we'd be talking about a 2-2 series like all the other series have been. But they just weren't able to get the puck in the net. And they did have a number of goals called back, and they hit a ton of posts. And that's just the way it goes sometimes in the playoffs. If this almost feels like one of those things that it just wasn't meant to be for the Islanders, because they hit so many posts. They had goals called back. They had goals that were called back that probably should have been, and they had goals called back that I probably wouldn't have called back. And it just seems like so many things had to go wrong for the Islanders this series for it to at least be a sweep. Not necessarily to lose, but to at least be a sweep. A lot of things went wrong for New York. The posts, the goals called back, the not being able to keep the puck out of their own net the same way that they did in the first round. And really, you put all those things together, and that's how they were swept. That's how they did not even win a game in this series. It took a lot of things going wrong. It took a lot of mistakes on the Islanders' part. It took a lot of great plays and great efforts from the Carolina Hurricanes to get this done. But now Carolina, moving on to the Eastern Conference Final. They are the first team to advance through to a conference final. We'll see what they do against Columbus Columbus or Boston, whoever wins that series, which now is tied. And the Hurricanes are a scary team, and I think they could very, very easily be a team that goes to the Stanley Cup. They are a scary, scary team because, like I said, they can play any kind of hockey that you want, and they've proven that in these playoffs. They can be physical, they can be fast, they can score a lot, they can score a little, and focus on defense. They can give up goals and still win games, and they can give up, nothing. They can shut you out. They can play any style of hockey. And that is a very, very scary team to try and go up against for any opponent. And the Islanders just weren't able to do it. They were not able to play well enough to beat a team that can play any style the way Carolina can. So that's how we are where we are now. That's how the Islanders are now sitting out of the playoffs, and Carolina has moved on. But still, I know it sucks to get knocked out of the playoffs, and if you're a fan of the Islanders, this, obviously is not how you wanted it to go. But look back on the season that the New York Islanders had. This year was a huge, huge win for the New York Islanders, and they may not be a Stanley Cup team this year, but this was a team that was widely regarded as a bottom feeder coming into this season, as a a last place team, a team that was expected to be near the bottom of their division, near the bottom of the conference. They lost John Tavares, and that was supposed to be it. And what did they do? They finished second in the division, to everyone's surprise. Then they swept the Penguins in the first round. And yes, it didn't end the way that you wanted, but this is a team who was supposed to be in the draft lottery, getting a top 10 draft pick. And now they made it to the second round of the playoffs this year. This year was a huge win for the New York Islanders. Their fans should be very, very happy and very, very proud of what they did. And they should, they have a ton to build off of to come back next year and once again be a great team in the NHL next year like they were this year. But really, when it comes down to it, the three main things that I think of that really hurt the Islanders was Carolina was able to win Islanders style of games. Islanders offense was non-existent. They could not score any goals. And the third thing was their defense cracked. That stifling shutdown defense that won them the series in the first round and was the reason they were a number 2 seed in these playoffs kind of went away at times, especially in games 3 and 4 against the Islanders. And when you have cracks in the defense like that, along with the offense unable to pick up the slack, you're not going to win hockey games, and that's what happened. So it was a very good season for the Islanders, but it is now over and has come to an end. Congratulations to the Hurricanes. They are now on to the Eastern Conference Final. So with that, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to our Patreon and merchandise store are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.